So the Boston Celtics have just hired Ime Udoka as their new head coach. This is the second offseason move that the Celtics have made under the leadership of Brad Stevens. And I love this pickup if I'm the Celtics. I think obviously the staff needs to be assembled, and there's a lot of other things that need to kind of come out of this. But Udoka as the head coach of the Celtics, I think it's the right move. For those of you who don't know much about Ime Udoka, he's actually been on the bench for a while with the Spurs, with the Sixers, and with the Nets most recently for the year that he was there, this recent year in Brooklyn. And the one thing that's for me sticks out about Udoka is that he's actually been around. He's also a former player, but outside of that is that he's been around some good coaches in his tenure as being an assistant. And one thing I wanted to kind of touch on is that he's been around Greg Popovich. I think that's the first name that everybody thinks of in San Antonio. He's been around most recently Steve Nash, and on that same Brooklyn Nets staff was Mike D'Antoni. He was with Brett Brown in Philadelphia. I mean, think what you may of Brett Brown, but he comes from that San Antonio Spurs tree, which I know kind of causes some pause for people, but I think because he's a former player, because he's kind of had his hand in some decisions as far as where players have decided to go. When LaMarcus Aldridge left Portland, and I'm assuming when he decided to go to Brooklyn this year before retiring, was because of Ime Udoka. I mean, he was a reason for Aldridge going to San Antonio, and then I'm assuming again to Brooklyn this year. So, he's been around Popovich, Nash, D'Antoni, Brett Brown. He was a part of that champion Spurs team in 2014, I believe. And he was the assistant coach there when they had beat the Miami Heat after losing the year prior. And again, you just want to, I think one thing is that being within stability, being within a winning organization, he's done that with the Spurs. I mean, think what you may of the Philadelphia 76ers, but then also with the Nets. I mean, this guy's been around success. He's been around good minds. I think another thing to note about his time in San Antonio was him being around other future head coaches. I mean, I already mentioned Brett Brown, but there's other candidates such as like Jim Boylan. I'm kind of losing names here as I'm talking live, but I mean, there's been other coaches that we know of that have been from San Antonio that have moved on to other head coaching positions or just moved around the league. He's been attached to USA Basketball as well. And look, the Celtics have gone 2 for 2 this offseason with the trade for Al Horford and the now head coaching decision of Ime Udoka. I think it's a great offseason so far. The NBA season isn't even officially over, and the Celtics are already winning the offseason as of right now. I say Brad Stevens goes 2 for 2 here. I think this is a great hire for them. I think the only other individual that I probably would have been happy with if I was a Celtics fan, like more happy with, is Chauncey Billups or Rick Carlisle. But even them, like I kind of hold in the same area as I do for Udoka. Like Billups, again, he's never been a head coach, and that's the downside of Udoka. He's never been a head coach before, but again, I mean, Stevens obviously has faith. There may be a prior relationship there as well, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a great hire. Billups would have been a first-time head coach, and Carlisle, I just think that Rick Carlisle goes to a team where he may have a little bit more say and control. So if he goes to Boston, it's obviously, he's got to answer to Brad Stevens. I don't know if he wants to do that. So we'll see. We'll definitely see what happens with Carlisle, but I think this is a great hire. I give it an A. I give that, Horford trade an A as well. Celtics doing really good in this offseason. And 2 thumbs up for the Celtics, and Celtics fans should be very happy that they also get a guy who is, again, played in the NBA. He played a few years for the Spurs. Bounced around to a couple other teams, but defensive player when he was playing in the league. So I just think that the way that you can relate to players and that is never something that should be discredited. I think when we think of former players coaching, like we think of Jason Kidd, maybe we even think of Steve Nash. Here's the difference I think with Udoka is that Udoka was never like a star player in the league, right? He also was never he was never a guy that everybody knew about on the Spurs. If you're a Spurs fan, if you're a good NBA fan, like, and know a lot of these different players that have come and gone, Udoka probably stands out a little bit. But again, he's not like a notable player in during his NBA career. However, I think that helps because he was around some successful players. He's watched other successful players. I think that's, again, just being around success, being around people that know how to win. Tim Duncan, being around Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, those Spurs teams, man, like that is something that I think really helps somebody learn. And again, he's gone through what he needs to go through. Played in the NBA, wanted to get into coaching. He gets into coaching. He's been on the bench for years now. And now he's finally getting the opportunity to become a head coach. And he lands in an organization that I think is, again, we're seeing it right now. They have young talent with Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And I think Brad Stevens is the right guy to lead this team. So I love the hire. I think it's really good. And we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I give the grade of this coaching hire an A for the Celtics. I think it's a fantastic hire.